The President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, received the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Sergei Lavrov. The United States on Tuesday vetoed an Arab-backed United Nations resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. And thousands of Greek farmers protested in Athens on Tuesday to demand financial aid. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, received the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, in the framework of the strengthening of the ties of friendship and bilateral cooperation between Caracas and Moscow. Russia's highest diplomatic authority arrived at the Miraflores Presidential Palace, where he met with the Venezuelan president. The senior officials reaffirmed their willingness to strengthen the strategic and bilateral partnership of the two countries and stressed that both countries share a solid relationship based on friendship and solidarity. Lavrov and Maduro also discussed issues such as interaction in the international arena, including the regional and global situation, advocating the establishment of a multipolar world order and upholding the principles of respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, and equality among states. In this context, at a joint press conference between the foreign ministers of Venezuela and Russia, the head of the Russian diplomacy stressed the stable level of the strategic partnership with Venezuela, referring that it has become truly friendly for more than 150 years. Lavrov indicated that both Moscow and Caracas coincide in a determination to achieve greater democracy in the international arena, while rejecting the blackmail and illegal sanctions of the United States and its allies. The Venezuelan Foreign Minister Iván Gil assured that this meeting will strengthen the friendship, solidarity, and cooperation between the two nations that have a history of alliance and brotherhood in the face of adversity.
Venezuela is one of our closest and most trusted friends in Latin America and in the world in general. We are united by close strategic partnership relations that have a value in themselves and that don't suffer in the face of the international situation. We agree on important aspects of the international agenda based on the bonds of friendship between our peoples.
The Russian foreign minister said that the cooperation between Moscow and Caracas upholds the principles of the Charter of the United Nations.
We talked in detail about cooperation in the international arena. We agreed on the need to strive for justice and democratization of the international relations. The strict compliance with all the principles of the UN Charter in its entirety. We jointly stress the principle of respect for the unity of sovereign states without blackmail, without unilateral coercive measures by Washington and its satellites. And we consider that our cooperation on different international platforms is an important joint contribution for the creation of a more just and multipolar world.
On the other hand, Venezuela's Foreign Minister Iván Gil reiterated that the relationship between Moscow and Caracas is of a strategic nature at all levels.
Venezuela and Russia have built a very important strategic relationship based not only on cooperation in the bilateral aspects mentioned by the foreign minister, which have to do with the energy, economic, and financial sectors, with sports, culture, tourism, industry, and agriculture, but also based on the fact that Russia and Venezuela also share principles in the international field.
Also, Iván Gil pointed out that Venezuela has received support from Russia to move forward in spite of the sanctions applied by the United States.
Venezuela, with its moral, with its capacity, with the instructions of President Nicolas Maduro, we have found a way to move forward despite the sanctions. We have also seen how other countries, such as the Russian Federation, have also found that way. Those attacks have made us stronger, They are illegal, they are illegitimate, they must be lifted. They hurt us, but Venezuela has found a way to move forward with or without them.
And we stay in Venezuela, where the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, denied the statements made by the opposition representative Gerardo Blide, who claimed to avoid establishing meetings to prevent the media pressure. The head of the National Assembly reaffirmed that in addition to the meetings, several agreements have been signed in several cities of the national territory. Also, Rodriguez reaffirmed that members of the Venezuelan opposition have not stopped being afraid of the media, asserting that from now on the meetings will be held in Caracas in front of the different national and international media. Likewise, Jorge Rodriguez indicated that while the members of the United Platform attended the meetings convened, they were planning destabilizing acts against the country and were seeking to make an attempt against the life of President Nicolas Maduro and other high officials. Cuba's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced in an official communique that the President of the National Assembly of Cuba, Esteban Lazo Hernández, has traveled to Kenya in light of the recent news published about the possible unconfirmed death of the two doctors kidnapped in that country on April 12, 2019. Since the first hours of receiving the news, the Cuban government has given absolute priority to the steps to obtain the most objective information regarding the facts. In this framework, since Sunday, February 18th, and in addition to the steps and communication with the Kenyan government, official contacts have been initiated with the Somali government in reach of accurate information regarding the reported military operations. So far, there has been no public statements from the U.S. or its forces to confirm the news about the kidnapped Cuban doctors Acel Herrera Correa and Landy Rodriguez Hernandez, or to deny what has been reported. In Haiti, the judge investigating the 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moïse issued a final report formally charging his widow, Martine Moïse. The judge, Walter Voltaire, indicated Martine Moïse this Monday for complicity and criminal conspiracy to murder Moïse in 2021. According to the magistrate, her declarations on the fact are full of contradictions and gaps that cast doubt on the veracity of her allegations. Along with the widow, 50 other people were charged, including the former Prime Minister of Haiti, Claude Joseph, and the former Chief of the National Police, Leon Charles. The Voltaire report was sent to the Public Prosecutor's Office, and it is expected that after being reviewed, the President of the Supreme Court will convene a trial. Top Brazilian diplomat Mauricio Lirio said Tuesday that world conflicts have returned to the levels of the Cold War and urged the international community to adopt a new global system to prevent new conflicts. The statement was made during a press conference on the eve of the two-day meeting of the G20 foreign ministers in Rio de Janeiro.
Conflicts have returned to the levels of the Cold War. This shows that there is a governance deficit to face the current challenges. These are challenges of various kinds, not just global challenges, such as the issue of climate change, but the basic challenge of preserving peace in the international system. Now we're just putting out fires with 183 conflicts around the world. The situation is so catastrophic in terms of humanitarian effects that structural action is obviously needed. We need to adapt the international system to prevent new conflicts.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The United States on Tuesday vetoed an Arab-backed United Nations resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in the conflict between Israel and Hamas in the besieged Gaza Strip. The proposal, which received 13 votes in favor with the United Kingdom abstaining, also rejected the foreseeable displacement of the Palestinian civilian population in violation of international law and demanded the immediate cessation of such violations and the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. It also called for unrestricted humanitarian access to and throughout the Gaza Strip. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield insisted that the approval of the Algerian proposal could jeopardize ongoing negotiations. This is the third time that the Security Council, whose resolutions are binding, has failed to reach a joint statement calling for a ceasefire in Gaza because of the U.S. veto. In this context, the Palestinian envoy to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, called Washington's veto of a Security Council push for a ceasefire absolutely reckless and dangerous.
The veto of this draft resolution is not only regrettable after weeks of consultations with every single Council member and after endless patience by the State of Palestine, the Arab states, and nearly the entire international community that for months have demanded a ceasefire. It is absolutely reckless and dangerous against shielding Israel even as it commits the most shocking crimes while exposing millions of innocent Palestinian civilians to its wrath and more untold horrors. It is not Israel that should be protected by the veto. It is Palestinian children, women, and men who must be protected by this Council acting now.
In Palestine, Israel continued its genocidal aggression against Gaza. Occupation forces committed 9 massacres in the last 24 hours, murdering 103 Palestinians and injuring 142 others. Gaza's health ministry reported that the death toll rose to 29,195 since October 7th. The Israeli offensive has so far left 69,170 people injured. Many victims still remain under the rubble as the occupation forces deliberately prevents ambulances and civil defense crews from reaching them. The health ministry also revealed that 18 patients from Nasser Medical Complex have been evacuated to field hospitals, with 118 others still inside the hospital, emphasizing that the situation inside the complex has exceeded a catastrophe and constitutes a direct threat to the lives of patients and medical staff. Doctors Without Borders expressed outrage that medical staff and patients are still trapped after Israeli forces attacked and raided the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis in the besieged Gaza Strip on February 15th. The humanitarian organization said in a statement that some 130 patients and at least 15 healthcare workers are still in the hospital with no electricity or running water and limited food. The statement also informs that 32 patients in critical condition have been already evacuated and actions are underway to try to evacuate the rest in the coming days. The organization's medical coordinator for Palestine, Guilherme Thomas, expressed his deep concern about the well-being of the patients and stressed that the situation in the Nasser hospital is yet another example of the way healthcare facilities are being dismantled one by one in the present conflict. In Yemen, US and UK forces launched a new airstrike against the coastal province of Hodeidah in the west of the country. Local media confirmed that the new attack by London and Washington, which both countries justified as being carried out to defend the Red Sea transit. On the other hand, the armed forces of Yemen confirmed that the country's anti-aircraft system managed to shoot down an enemy drone while assuring that its naval forces attacked a British vessel in the Gulf of Aden. So far, the US-British coalition has not issued any comment on the exchange of hostilities. Yemen's Houthi forces continue their operation in the Red Sea to prevent the passage of ships heading for Israel in support of the Palestinian people. A building collapsed in a southern suburb of Beirut late Monday, killing 4 people and injuring 3 others as search operation continued for more people under the rubble. Among the 4 fatal victims were 2 women, 1 man and 1 child. Also, it is estimated that 17 people are still trapped under the debris. The building that collapsed in the suburb of Shoifeda Monday night crumbled after days of heavy rain in Lebanon. Local officials said the building was not considered safe and the municipality had ordered the 4-story building evacuated 2 years ago out of concerns due to the weakness of its foundation. Despite the order, the owner of the building rented apartments to Syrian families. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Thousands of Greek farmers protested in Athens on Tuesday to demand financial aid, escalating a 4-week showdown with a government that says it has no more funds to help. According to local police, some 8,000 farmers took part in the protest, honking horns and waving Greek flags on dozens of tractors driven to the capital from across the country. The farmers began protesting last month, joining a wider movement that has seen roads blocked in France, Germany, Italy, Poland and Spain, among other countries. Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, on the other hand, said the demonstration would be useful to persuade the European Union to change its agricultural policies. Greek discontent is partly fueled by anger at the slow pace of reconstruction after devastating floods in September in Thessaly, the center of Greece's agricultural production. Farmers want import controls, lower fuel taxes, better prices for products, and an easing of European Union environmental regulations. The European Union extended for another year the unilateral sanctions applied by the bloc against Russia. Brussels renewed the 12th rounds of sanctions against Russia, which have been in place since February 2022, after the start of the special military operation. It also confirmed that it is studying the possibility of applying new sanctions against Moscow. The unilateral measures affect a range of sectors of the Russian economy and include trade embargoes, travel bans, and sanctions against Russian businessmen and officials. Despite these sanctions, in early February, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that the country's economy would grow by up to 3.6%. The director of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, warned that sanctioning the Russian nuclear industry will cost the European Union billions. Grossi detailed that many companies in the West depend on Russian supplies of enriched uranium and that sanctioning the Russian state nuclear energy company, Rosatom, would paralyze the nuclear industry in many countries. This announcement comes after some members of the European Union propose extending the blockade against Russia to nuclear fuel, despite the fact that Rosatom owns almost 50% of the world's uranium enrichment infrastructure and 36% of the world's uranium exports. On Tuesday, in the United Kingdom, activists rallied in front of the London High Court before the final appeal of journalist Julian Assange against his extradition to the United States. In this regard, Julian Assange's lawyers are launching a final attempt to fight against the cyber activist's extradition to the United States, where he could face life imprisonment if convicted of espionage charges. The 52-year-old founder of WikiLeaks is facing a trial in the United States for exposing U.S. war crimes after publishing secret military and diplomatic files. If he loses, Assange will have exhausted all the United Kingdom's appeals and will enter the extradition process, although his team has indicated that he will appeal to the European courts. And following a proposal made by Norwegian lawmaker Sophie Marhaug, the Australian journalist and WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 2024. The declarations made by Marhaug to the Norwegian newspaper Dagbladet, where the Assange had exposed Western war crimes and made important contributions to peace. Marhaug called the journalist a political prisoner and said he should be honored, not persecuted. The Australian journalist is being held on remand in a United Kingdom prison and is charged by the United States with 18 counts of espionage and computer intrusion for publications that revealed human rights violations by the U.S. military in Iraq and Afghanistan. In South Korea, thousands of doctors submitted letters of resignation in rejection of the government's reform to increase the number of medical training places. Second Vice Minister of Health Park Min-soo reported that 6,415 trainee doctors at about 100 hospitals have resigned without being accepted, while about 1,600 of them have left their jobs. The doctors' strike began when the government announced last week that it would increase the annual quota of places for medical students by another 2,000. South Korean doctors' associations have denounced the government's lack of dialogue in implementing the measure and claimed that it will affect the quality of training, the quality of service, and the very financial well-being of the public health system. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.